camera thing set up. Nope. Yeah. And you gotta extend our little stick guy. There we go. Yeah, that works. Hopefully. I haven't actually tried doing novel editing on the stream yet, so we'll see what happens. Did that work? Oh my gosh, can you even read text? Whoa. Alright. I'm just gonna start reading from the beginning. It's a little close, huh? But you know what? That's just what we're working with today. Let me see if I can get y'all a better angle. I think you just need to be up a little higher. Oh my gosh, to set up this stream, I had to move lamps and get extension cords. It was like a whole situation. Alright, let's loosen this one. Oh yeah, fun with tripods. Yeah, because now I can like tilt you down a little bit. There we go. You're at kind of a weird angle, but you know what? I ain't got totes control over every single thing. There we go. Alright, let's edit this goddamn novel. I have edited the first probably 40 pages of what is a fucking massive tome. It's probably 300 pages, I think. Did I overestimate? 280. It's like 280 pages. The first draft. And the ending is just garbage currently. So, yeah. Part 1. Oh, by the way, this novel is called Helmet and Forceps. I've shared some of it online before, but I really need to edit it, and I have been avoiding it, so that's what we're going to do. Helmet and Forceps, Part 1. Verticals and Grounders. Chapter 1. We were wanderers. For most of our time on Earth, we were wanderers. We hunted and gathered, explored, and found the edges of things. When we settled, when we let ourselves dig our roots deep in the unsuspecting soil. When we settled, when we let ourselves dig our roots deep in unsuspecting soil. Our roots but sometimes those roots turned us from explorers to exploiters. I will say soon. For most of our time on Earth, we were wanderers. We hunted, gathered, explored, and found the edges of things. When soon we settled, we let ourselves dig our roots deep in unsuspecting soil. But sometimes those roots turned us from explorers to exploiters. Some thought we had discovered the earth. Some thought we knew its creases. Some thought ourselves its rulers. Come to find out, we were wrong. The earth showed us its true faces then. Vicious faces we had forgotten, but rose again in our vacant memories. Plague, drought, fire, storm, heat, flood. So we tore off our roots and felt again the palms of our feet against that unknown soil. scraped up our hems to wander under cold stars, lost our sure taxonomies, and found again our fingertips on scales, on petals, on thorns. And with this touch, we learned to learn again. Or at least some of us did. Alright, this feels really good. Let's go on to the next chapter. Chapter 2. Screenshot dies. Screenshot pulled the corner and banked hard right to catch Table Legs Famous, or actually I'm going to change this to the city name, which is Dust Jacket. Screenshot pulled the corner and banked hard right to catch Dust Jacket's famous, or maybe infamous, southern updraft. His glider, a suit zipped over his leggings and beige lace tank top, webbed his arms and legs with polymer tissue and sinew muscles ported to his forearms. He'd gone with a leafed and shimmering green motif, less to hide and more to feel like one of the gang. Up here in the green. No, I don't like that. This is what editing a novel is like. Okay. He'd gone with a leafed and shimmering green motif, less to hide and more to feel like one of the gang, like he was home out there. I should say here, out here. Home out here with the absent air and jungle greens. Just before the big jump, he flicked on his live feed and saw the names come pouring in. Oh, that's what we're doing right now. Hi, live stream. By the way, if you have any thoughts or comments about the story as I read it, or word choice or particular sentence or anything, chuck it in the comments. I'm streaming to, not just have my own eyes on the text, but everyone's eyes, so. Just before the big jump, he flicked on his live feed and saw the names come pouring in, eager for a first-person view. Nice to know they were with him. Even if this was just test glide. Nice to know they were with him, even if this was just a test glide. He was testing his new reshoot. It was a laser scanner plus compressed air plus magnetic something something. He hadn't paid much attention to the what, just the how. It's not like he bought uncertified. He wasn't an idiot. Someone else had done the paperwork, checked it over, been diligent, so he could just turn a page. Drop cash and trust. It was meant to be a landing of last resort, something to pull when you're losing your shit. But it was way too fun to just leave in the wrapper. Using the auto-updated 3D map of the city, his lasers and ping pins kept track of his XYZ. Get too low or too wild and the reshoot would fire automatically, grabbing on to the nearest side rail, leaving its cargo, his skinny behind, swinging happily on the end of the line. It wouldn't save him only a few floors from the bottom, but no one flew down there anyway. The air was better up here. He'd used it a dozen times already, and was getting the hang of it. Next goal, a bridge wraparound. Here goes, he smiled into the stream, wagging his tongue at them for effect, before he leapt from the balcony into the noon-bright sky. After a 10-story boost from a thermal, he repositioned to the center of the wide lane between two buildings. Keeping table leg on his right, he pulled his limbs in tight, sucking his body streamline as he plummeted through the brazen green. When the floor meter read 121, he said the safe word. It worked perfectly. The magnetic claw yanked him out of the high-speed fall at just the right angle to send him arching over the bridge on a taut line. Neck snapped from the jolt. He was 15. They'd outlawed recreational grapples after that. Chapter 3. Helmet launches pinpoint. 3 knocks, regularly spaced. Front door, no notification. Who even does that anymore? A desperate move that smelled of over-rehearsed scam. Helmet ignored it. Period. Solidarity fork, she asked. Voice to text, thumb wheeling through the code base. No changes. You forked like 10 minutes after I published. Did you even read it first? She picked for edits, waiting for a reply. Don't need to read it. You recited the architecture at me over oatmeal, Forceps texted back. Their pixel pixie voice skin reading it out in Helmet's ear. I cannot do voices. I am not doing voices. I'm just going to read it in my own voice. And if I ever have the dream goal of having somebody else make an audiobook for me, we'll get someone who does good voices. I have no idea what pixel pixie voice skin sounds like. I just like the way it sounds. There's someone at the door. Come home and open it for me, Helmet pouted, neglecting to add that she was still in her owl onesie from the night before and would rather not change clothes just to shoo away some hump thumper. Do, 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 do. There we go. There, I checked in some syntax improvements. Happy now? Forceps chirped in her ear. Solidarity fork my ass. Distracted by the promise of new code, Helmet waddled over to the kitchenette to flick on the electric kettle, patinaed matte from overuse. If she was going to get down to serious work, she needed provisions. It was tea time. The kettle hissed to life, sucking charge from the flocks of turbines perched in little pinwheel clumps on every unoccupied surface of the tower's outer shells. She doubted they were pulling down much from the city's high-altitude solar this late in the day. Knock, knock, knock. She watched steam rise from the printed aluminum spout like a magician's linked handkerchiefs. One after the other, she pulled out her orange mug, real ceramic, hand-thrown and glazed, with tiny ninjas posed in an epic battle. On the counter was a box of loose Darjeeling, or at least what passed for it now that the only legal supply was grown 3 towers over. Around here, if it wasn't local, you couldn't get it. With a dash of oat milk and a long stream from the kettle, she went back to her code review. Her cobbled workspace a welcoming tangle. Her little learn-as-it-went search algo was turning heads on the vert. Her feed, which she usually downsized and shoved out of sight, was swollen with notices. Grabbing it with both hands, she stretched to oversized, plopped the whole mess in the middle of the rug, and collapsed down cross-legged next to it. First, she waved away the follower forwards. These little sky blue orbs, notifications of who had spread word of the launch beyond Helmet's small but influential mutuals. They were nice to see, but she'd sniff that social graph later. Knock, long silence meant to really get you thinking about your actions reopening the door. Long silence meant to really get you thinking about how your actions reopening the door are affecting other people's lives. Knock, similarly linked silence to reinforce previous assertions. Knock, long silence, tinged with a hint of guilt seeping in from under the door. Helmet yanked out her cranial in both sensories. Yes, she was old now. Yes, she was stuck in her ways, but wired would always beat wireless. It just had a better mouthfeel. She stormed to the door, sliding it open roughly. Can I help you? Why, yes you can, said the overly articulate, overly freckled twinkle that was now demanding an audience with what had once been her happily unoccupied landing. A hand jutted out from their clear plastic rain slicker that belled from their shoulders like an upside-down cone of shame. Hello, I'm Coinop, and I have an amazing... Let me just stop you there. Helmet waved off the handshake. She never touched strangers if she could help it. I don't care. I used to feel bad about stopping thumpers mid-script, but that had been before... Oh, whoops. She used to feel bad about stopping thumpers mid-script, but that had been before they'd been overrun with feed hawkers and day traders and pavement pirates peddling crap exploits that wouldn't be worth half coin in the vert. Physical washouts, the lot of them. Hi, y'all. Happy to hear comments about the text. In the chats, we are editing the draft first. This is we're working on the second draft right now of the novel. Helmet and forceps. They just stood there, not getting the message. You see that sign? She pointed to the little animation she'd installed on the door. See how the skull is chewing through the little gremlin? That's you. And she looked them straight in the eyes and added, if I ever see you here again, she tapped her cranial port for effort, I will bot you. Hi. Nice to see you. Thanks for hanging out. Helmet wasn't the largest specimen, short by anyone's standard, with a practical frame with a frame of practical muscle and belly fat, with terracotta skin and the kind of tits that didn't bother with bras. She didn't need size to scare the shit out of this decoupage dandy. This was all in the eyes. And Helmet had the perfect pair, one gold and one green. I think we got off to a bad start. I'm Coinop, he tried again, but Helmet peeled back her lips and lowered her chin, grinning slowly. It's a cute name, she snarled. I'd hate for anything to happen to it. Okay, fine, tough guy. Coinop rolled their eyes and teetered off to the next tower. Helmet bristled at the G word. Not okay, she grumbled, peeking her head around the corner to make sure they were gone, before sliding the door shut behind her and padding out onto the public walkway. Forgetting her socked feet, she walked to the corner, eager to see what the raccoons were up to today. Must come up with better anti-huckster repellent, she muttered, leaning over the walkway railing. The air was clear today, and she could see at least 100 floors straight down into the leafy canyon between the tower she lived in, Table Leg, and Carabiner just across the canyon. Nearby, a pack of pink chartreuse parrots wrestled over a neighbor's feeder. Dust Jacket, the best city in the world by Helmet's estimation, was ideal growing space for any plant that could scrape together a living from the gelatinous air and bounced sunlight. And all that green made plenty of hiding spaces for wildlife. Every tower teemed with ferns and ivies and hostas, every ilk of shade-evolved shoot that had managed that had managed to worm up one of the tower's crinoline bark or hitch a ride on a visiting boot. Here, anywhere was viable territory for the industrious sprout. The railings of the public walkways that ringed every floor of every tower, the inter-tower bridges, the outdoor staircases that climbed from floor to floor, the open-air mezzanines, story-wide gaps in the tower's stacking mass where people went for picnics and magball games. Even the zip lines had to be periodically cleared of creeping greenery. The clinging sedalias and their vining cohorts played host to tree snails and morpho butterflies. cool weather frogs, and shiny beetles. Oh, and the spiders. They were everywhere. Just yesterday, Helmut had found a sack of almost transparent orb weavers, newly hatched, a boiling pot of thin white legs and tiny dust pink bodies. One floor below, she could see the shiny black berries of angler flowers dangling tantalizingly on their arched lure lines, tart and sweet if you could get them, but most were snatched by the red and purple lorikeets that built their twiggy nests clinging to the undersides of bridges. Down here, life was still dense, but as the towers climbed, eventually the meadow foam, albino redwoods, and woolly blue curls that coated Dust Jacket's lower floors lost to the thinning air. It was blue to the rafters after that. A metal whir snuck in among the calling birds. Forceps, Helmet spun. You'll never guess what just happened. Forceps was hard to miss, even if you weren't standing nose to nose. Their sharp jaw and carving cheekbones were all a perfect shade of light-sucking black-brown, and their thin frame was tucked into a mobility carapace, a protective conical chair that was neuro-articulated legs that felt their way along the ground like the arms of a buoyant octopus. I am not speaking to you at this time, Forceps said, nudging past to perch tall and proud at the tower's edge, eyes fixed on the busy canyon. I have been accused of crimes I clearly did not commit, and I do not negotiate with reputation terrorists. They sighed playfully, their sigh playfully detached. It shouldn't be they, it should be there. Hold on. Their sigh. Their sigh playfully detached. No crimes committed, General. Helmet stood to attention, playing sergeant. Just good, clean code. I wanted you to look your best on your big day, Forceps sniffed their little signal. Helmet bounded over. Helmet bounded over, always the puppy, ready for catch. She pulled back the neck of Forceps' vapor-thin top and kissed along the lattice of hexagons that traced down their back. I see. Traced down their back. Not even the neurosuit, which connected Forceps' nervous system to their carapace, could mask the heat of their skin against her lips. The new Nectixectics, the repair nanobots that swarmed Forceps' bloodstream, had their metabolism on overdrive. I trunked. You fork. Kiss. So. Kiss. Kiss. Access granted. Forceps reached out with one snaking metallic arm and looped a curly strand behind Helmet's ear. What's your news? Incessantly interrupted by unannounced physicals. Try the Unwelcome Mat, a fully automated anti-hump thumper device with facial remembrance technology to keep you safe and repeat offenders thinking twice. She offered it up like a business plan. Thought out. Vested. Electrocution is illegal, darling, Forceps smiled, heading for their compartment door. Doors deserve protection, and frankly, I don't appreciate your brazen neglect of our safety. Our first line of defense against these jerkweasels is under attack. Let me guess, Forceps stopped, pulling Helmet in. You put on your big, scary helmet face and threatened them with vert harm? Helmet only nodded. I'm sure the owl onesie and the sloppy top bun fed the look of a crazy woman about to pounce. The poor thing. They called me tough guy, Helmet said. They called me tough guy, Helmet whimpered, her eyes wet around the edges. Oh, honey, come here immediately. Forceps tangled their arms around Helmet. Words hurt, huh? Helmet sniffed and Forceps smiled, and the door unlocked as they approached. Have you eaten? There was tea at some point. Helmet shut the door behind her. The seals hissed and the dehumidifier kicked on. You port. I'll cook, Forceps said, drifting off to the kitchen. Helmet shooed Waffles, their old mutt of a cat, off the rug, got her footing, and left the world in Forceps' capable exosuit-assisted hands. Poor thing, she heard Forceps' voice faintly behind the load-in music. Is that how you do that? Load-in? Maybe like that. Did she take your own personal nap spot? Ay, pobrecito. The moment Helmet's station loaded, she saw that the notification pile she'd left in the middle of the room had grown into a mountain. Sizing the whole mess down to fit in arm's reach, she quickly triaged it into a stack of warm fuzzies, a few bug reports another kidder had already solved and requested trunked. It looked solid enough, so in it went. And a job offer. Plucking the offer from the pile, the LOD popped in, and the trinket turned from pink blob to magnifying glass. She spun it in her palm. The things... The thing's shader toning the brass handle and glass lens a murky blood orange. It was oddly overstyled for a basic job offer trinket. You seen this before? She chucked it up on the display near where Forceps was digging ingredients from a basket. Ooh, shiny. I'd wear that, Forceps said. I'll take that as a no. Seems odd timing for an odd job, she mused, turning it over to look for any clues scribbled on the model. She was itching to dive into her vat of congratulations now that Pinpoint was out in the world, but she hated to leave a loose thread. She had to figure out where this thing had come from. She swept all the candy-colored trinkets into a drawer and stuck a counter on the front, just to keep an eye on it. Time for a job interview. Holding the lens up to her eye, she saw a standard file finder invitation hovering between her and the vintage full art land poster on the wall opposite. Please state your name and license number to activate the user authentication protocol. Authentication? Yeah, that's the right word. Maybe. User authentication protocol. This is not your standard security tedium. 15 steps later, including a voice print, kinesthetic comparison, and at least one cranial feedback scan, the wizard forwarded her to a live link. The interface was sick with even 0 logos. She spoke first. Well, I went through enough checkpoints to get here, so I'm either legit or an excellent fraud. You know, now that I think about it, if you guys might want to mix up the security procedures a bit. Oof. Move. Physical object. Turns out stories are heavy. I mean, are you saying you're a fraud? She couldn't see the person talking, but the voice skin sounded tinny, like a robot from an old flat movie. Ooh. Hang on, I need to get a sip of water. Water. Oof. Nom. Okay. We have been hydrated. If you can sound like anything, why do you choose to sound like a tin can? The words fell out of her mouth, straight into the line's live log. No backsies. This is the standard even 0 employee voice skin. Does it bother you? No. Well, I mean, yeah, if you're asking. just seems so retro as to be intentional. Like you're trying hard to say something without, like saying something, which makes listening to it really annoying because it's like an inside joke that I'm too lazy to get, and I am not lazy. Well, at least only half of the time, plus bots have great voices these days, but you're stuck on vintage. Interesting. What's interesting? Is this the kind of interview that I pass with being strangely talkative and overly analytical? Because if that's true, I'd pass with flying colors. No. I mean, let's face it, I'm crushing this thing. What's the prize anyway? I could go for a special agent badge with a team that at first underestimates me because I'm the new kid, but soon changes their mind when I make a clever and heroic move that saves at least two of their lives, and then one of them pats me on the back and says with terse, stoic precision, respectable. Interesting, the tin can said again. The room was still black. Okay. Are you just a chatbot that makes me think that you're cool and reserved by not answering any of my questions and just remarks that everything I say is interesting as a way to deflect my line of questioning away from why we're here? Interview? Remember? You pinged me? Ma'am, I just do intake. Or, I guess I should do robot voice. Ma'am, I just do intake. Your interview will be conducted by Anne. But she wasn't listening. Invasive security for an intake bot? She fiddled with her sensory port, thinking. She wanted a skip button, less tutorial, more action. The next few thoughts fell on her like a bullet train. Forceps would have advised patience, but no one could possibly be expected to be patient and bored at the same time. Is that a description of myself? Why, yes, it is. All the characters in this book are me. Just, none of them are other people. They're all just me. No one could possibly be expected to be patient and bored at the same time. Even Zero wanted a finder. If Even Zero wanted a finder, that was exactly what they were going to get. The tin can was still talking in her ear, so instead of wasting precious brain space trying to do both things at once, she pulled up a link interference kit she'd found on a forum a few months back and let it loose on their security connections. I'm sorry, she asked. I'm sorry? She asked, trying to sound confused with a tinge of being let down by their inferior tech budget. I can't quite hear you. It wasn't a lie. The app slowly untwisted their threaded link until there was nothing left but a cannot be found error floating in Helmut's upper right-hand view. Perfect. You'll get a 404, and I'll get some work done. The notifications had doubled again, but work first, flattery later. Them's the rules. I don't need was, huh? I just need thems. Them's the rules. Snapping open the magnifying glass, she tumbled through its innards. Why, yes, she could have done this before, thanks for asking, but why bother when she thought it was a quick file find job? The brief inside listed lost corporate documents, but for the price tag there had to be more meat on this bone. She snagged a copy of her security confirmation from the now dead uplink, anonned it, and plastered it to the Dust Jacket Finders Union Rapid Response Board. No one admins her and gets away with it. She'd bait the script kiddies into letting themselves inside Even Zero's server, blowing all the whistles while she slipped in none the wiser with their quarry in hand. No interview needed. Why, yes, coin was just fine. How kind of you to ask. She plucked a deepfake onion skin from the pile and wired it up to her private pinpoint to look for brags, cells, anything sketch with a whiff of Even Zero. Easy. Lost and found was her business after all. There we go. Now to wait for the first pass to come back. The little red notification, or the little red floating, the little red indicator, I can read my own writing. Good job, brain. The little red indicator floating haphazardly in front of her notifications drawer had climbed to 5 digits. Fuck, she said, opening the drawer and letting them spill out all over the floor. Why not make a mess? She kicked at the ankle-deep flood and watched them bounce off each other. The physics... Why can I not get the camera in the right position? The physics sim chugging for more GPU. One message bounced weightlessly off her shoulder. She caught it, the impossibly thin petals falling open in her hand. It was from a young Finder user named Vacuum. She'd seen them around the Finder forums a few times, but they'd lurked more than talked. Brill catch helmet. Just tried it out. A heartstopper, this one. Found a vid I can't read my own pigeon. Found a vid of me off kindergarten I never knew existed. Mama told me the story more than a few times about the graduation robe all cut up the front. That's not how front is spelled. All cut up the front so I wouldn't trip over it. I made her leave the back long like a train. Only kid on the stage sporting full kit. Kindergarten graduation is serious business, you know. Thanks for the relive. Hashtag I heart pinpoint. The kid had linked the video. She popped it, and there they were, 3 foot nothing in a full-size graduation robe cut just above their patent purple lace-ups. They were marching over to receive their unlock, a look of sheer pride on their tiny face. Well, Pinpoint, you did a good thing, baby. The avatar for her project, a pygmy Jeroba with spiked purple fur and giant black eyes, perked up at the sound of its name and bounced happily on its hind legs. She figured it was the perfect... Again, move the giant book over. There we go. She figured it was the perfect avatar for Pinpoint. A tiny, open-source, adaptive search assistant she taught all her best tricks. Or at least the strictly legal ones. It was mere gigabytes, ran on everything, and can find its way into almost anything if given enough time. Even things you never knew you wanted to see. She tied it up in a simple GUI and let it loose. So cheap, it was free. She grabbed another message. I guess trigger warning for bullying language, since this whole section is about her getting bullied online. Traitor, cunk bitch, traitor, die. Oops. She'd forgotten to turn on the autofilter. She flicked the switch and the trolls were neatly organized into a cube. She opened another one. I hope this ruins you. Fucking leeches drinking off the work of other finders. Calling yourself Finder is a stain on the name. You can't just swoop in and steal everything. I would like to point out that this underlined section right here is appropriately misspelled. I did it myself. Intentionally misspelled. Very proud of my intentional misspelling, since I misspell every other word unintentionally. She looked around for friendlies. There were plenty. Stack after stack of 4 words, smiling, and thumbs up emoji, little notes of thanks. But now she was seeing them everywhere. Her feed was drawing dozens of all-caps tirades a minute. She dumped all the pissed off messages in a word cloud generator, and ruin and traitor stood bold amongst a moat of slurs. Doo-doo-doot. Fuck. She put her head in her hands. This is what trying to make cool things gets you, Helmet. Trolls and spawn campers and hate. Should never have expected anything less. You know, I can hear you, right? Forceps floated over, dumping a spoonful of something deeply meaty and lime bright into Helmet's mouth. What do you think? More salt? I know, I mismeasured. You canceled? Holy shit, that's good. Helmet wiggled her shoulders in excitement. Is that dinner? I told you intense flavor is the best way to interrupt an anxiety spiral before it gets started. Forsyth smiled, taking the spoon back to the kitchen. I wasn't spiraling, Helmet kvetched. Mm-hmm. I wasn't. I was just reading the comments, Forceps offered. Fine, yes, I was reading the comments. Helmet huffed and went back to her interfaces. She took a deep breath and poked her friends list to see who was up. Tomato, a level head, had always been the type to squat down between two warring camps, trying to sow peace. She privated him. Helmet, you okay? Tomato, should be the other way. This is crazy town. You breathing? Helmet, close as. Helmet, did I? Tomato, no. Seriously, no. Tomato, just let me deal a while, okay? I will private you anything we find you should be concerned about. It will blow over. Helmet, always does, right? There we go. Always. He was right, of course. She sat back, scouring her eyes with the heels of her hands, trying to clear the clawing hate from her mind. Time for a break. She bled her ports, retracting the wires back into the wall, and decamped to the kitchen where Forceps was stirring a pot of boiling pork broth. Heaps of handmade ramen noodles sat steaming in the blue and white peony print bowls that were Forceps' favorite. They loved the heft of wheel-thrown ceramic. Each bowl was topped with beautifully sliced green onions, dollops of corn. Lost my place. Dollops of corn and thin slices of tender print pork fresh from the pot. Forceps pulled the crowning jewels, a pair of ajitsuke, soy-stained soft-boiled eggs, from their soak and gently nestled them into the broth before dotting them with spoonfuls of their homemade chili crisp. That's some expert work you're doing over there, Helmet said, watching Forceps roll their eyes and smile. It's not like I made it from scratch just now. It's mostly leftovers redressed, Forceps said. But seeing Helmet hypnotized, fixed on the rising steam, they added, Carrie? That was always Helmet's job. Forceps bobbed to the wall and slid out their two-top, arranging it with little glass pot candle and a few of the river stones they'd been collecting since childhood. The table had been cut with an indent on one side to accommodate their exosuit. Hey, I saw that soup thief, Forceps yelled, catching Helmet trying to secret sips from the side of Forceps' bowl mid-transfer. Forceps froze mid-sip, a guilty smile on her face. Itsudakimasu? No. Under no circumstances, Forceps shooed her toward the table with one of the Exo's long silver tendrils. Careful not to spill, Helmet set the bowls down and reached for the chili crisp. She always double-dosed. Forceps had fallen in love with the stuff when they'd first hit the izakaya 2 levels down. The owner, Stiletto, a lanky, portless man with more hair on his back than his head, insisted they take a jar. It was his secret recipe, he whispered conspiratorially after months of serving them his signature bowls, handed down from a generation that lived on the ground. I have a theory, Helmet started, taking a break halfway through her bowl, savoring the lingering tingle on her lips. There's something wrong with me. Forceps looked up, pausing. Get me a refill, they replied finally, sliding their glass across the table. Helmet clutched the heavy glass water pitcher and poured. Forceps took a sip before adding, what kind of wrong? I hung up on a job today. Not the first time. I hung up on a job today because I couldn't stand the sound of their robo-chat skin. I hung up because I was bored, and I knew they wouldn't give me anything to go on that I couldn't get myself. I hung up because I was burning to crack into the heap of notes, filling up my feed, all chattering about Pinpoint. But when I did, I found it clogged to the rafters with gospel in all caps, calling me bullshit, calling me traitor. Me! Traitor to the nation! Finders, grab your pitchforks, 'cause Helmut gave away all of our pitiful secrets in an easy-to-use toy box. Finders don't own search. Hoarders, all of them, calling me traitor, when they're the ones keeping literacy to themselves. You can't stockpile Finder like some sort of old collegiate approbation. They can't do this to me. She buckled under the weight of it. I lost. No, you didn't. Mad is mad, but lost. Lost is another thing completely. Forceps reached across the table and lifted Helmut's hand to their lips, kissing each knuckle as they spoke. Spoiled royals do not like to be dethroned. They will fight you, but you knew that going in. So where is all this defeat coming from? Did I make the right decision? Only time will tell, Forceps soothed, their voice like steam rising over homemade broth. Idioms? Helmut asked. Precisely. When the dishes had been cleaned, and Tomato's bots had cleared her feed of the worst hate, she braved the ports and checked the results of her finder. Her private pinpoint, a version of the public kit beefed up with a few half-legal plugins, had a clear lead on the job offer. Gust Town, Coffee House A, see Grout, ask for permission. If Pinpoint had a big data hunch that there was some connection between this caffeine slinger and the stolen documents, she was in the mood to believe it. We will have better ideas after sleep. Adrenaline never makes for good long-term plans, Forceps said, straightening their chrysanthemum on their kitchen counter, a gift from Helmut on their last anniversary. The long, cantaloupe orange petals were heaped on a spindly stem too weak to support them without the chopstick struts Helmut had carved as buttresses. Forceps had volunteered to print something up, but Helmut had volunteered to print something up, but Forceps wouldn't hear of it. The struts held the flower like elegant crutches, scrimshaw in bamboo. With the table slid neatly away, Helmut gestured, and their sleeping pod drooped from the ceiling like a sweet pipe flower fruits that grew 10 levels up on table leg. Forceps glided to the pod as they talked. The semi-transparent hexagonal mesh that neuro-controlled the exosuit was just visible against their dark skin. The suit's movements gave their arms, long atrophied of the muscle that once controlled them, an ethereal float more lithe than any unassisted human. You're staring again, Forceps smiled over their shoulder once they'd reached the pod. Tell me again, Helmut gazed at them. Forceps smirked, peeling off their tunic in a slow circular dance. They uncoiled their cybernetic tendrils like kelp in the waves. The arms were technically still in alpha, but Extremity had gone all out on Forceps. The integration they had managed on such bleeding-edge hardware was a sight. Like they'd been born with them instead of having them made to measure only 16 months ago. Fortunately, they convinced Extremity that since this was technically a medical sponsorship, they would look classier if they kept their logo off the thing. It's not like they have much competition, and with Forceps' big Yoko Choco coming up, they would get plenty of press off the streams. I like the otherworldly effect, Forceps twirled suddenly, snatching Helmut up against the kitchen wall with metallic speed and a light grip. The arms coiled around her middle, throat, wrists, and ankles, pinning her squirming a foot off the ground. Forceps leaned in to unzip Helmut's onesie and kissed her collarbone. Helmut's skin, a human cool against Forceps' modded heat. Helmut's face surged pink with eagerness, but Forceps only licked their lips and drifted away, letting Helmut down gently. I like the half stares. I like the celebrity. Oof. Toot, 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 toot. Forceps admitted. The carapace in which their lower half was encased uncorked at the seams with a vacuum hiss, and they used the arms to lift themselves into the bed's foam cradle. On remote pilot now, the delicate pincers roamed over their jewel-black skin, snipping the neuromesh at the seams and peeling it away in thin sheets until Forceps was free, marooned from the buzzing tech of their daytime body, gone to recharge for tomorrow. You coming? Helmet shed her clothes with her customary unorganized flail, getting her head caught in the sleeve of her onesie before freeing herself and bounding into bed. Without the extremity, Forceps' movements returned to their stuttering cadence, too weak to shift or roll without Helmet's assistance. The two of them had experimented with keeping the Exo parked near their sleeping pod at night to adjust Forceps' position, but they both preferred the manual way. Helmet dug her fingers into the jar of ointment meant to cool Forceps' skin where the Exo left congregations of tiny sores, a bug that, Extremity assured them, would be fixed by the next update. Ooh, Forceps flinched. That's the worst one. Helmet was working on Forceps' right hip, where one of the sores was getting worse, boring a pinky-white crater deep in Helmet's skin. You need a break from that thing. Helmet tried to sound forceful, but not bossy. It wasn't her body, after all. They did tell you not to wear it every day until they get that worked out. She was expecting outright refusal, or at least a pout of resistance, but Forceps just sighed and laughed. I may have gone a little overboard, they grinned. Drag my mech out for me in the morning? Always. Helmet opened a live feed. Helmet opened a live feed pinging Forceps' team. Borax, the head nurse, answered. Hey y'all, what you need? Cables and anchors, Forceps. Why didn't you call me days ago and take that silly thing off? Helmet leaned back and forth, trying to show Borax the hole from every angle. Helmet, grab a sheet of Tegaderm and a spray saline from the kit. Oh, and a towel. I am not trying to wet your bed. Helmet dutifully followed every instruction, carefully washing the ulcerated skin, dabbing it gently with Forceps' DIY aloe gel, and sealing the protective film around the edges of the wound before inflating the adhesive cushioner to keep any weight off the area. They worked until Borax was happy and Forceps was finally comfortable, then hung up, huddled in besides Forceps. Cuddled in besides Forceps and traced... This sentence is way too long. Oh no, it stops here. I see. She worked till Borax was happy and Forceps was finally comfortable, then hung up, cuddled in besides Forceps, and traced little circles over their collarbones and chest. In a halting staccato, Forceps draped their arm across Helmet's stomach. Its touch so diffuse and fevered that Helmet imagined it made of salted desert air. Noble as the wind, Helmet quoted. Patient as a ruin, Forceps quoted back. Alright, that's the first 3 chapters. I did 3 entire chapters. And it turns out I can only talk for 53 minutes before my throat gives out. So maybe tomorrow we will do another stream where I get to edit more of this book. Thanks for hanging out with me. Goodbye.